Hello people, it's your boy Cutesy Bandicoot here. This is a series where I talk about books I read over some gameplay videos. Please don't use me as your primary source or something like that. Don't cite me. This is just what I gathered from my memory, notes, and Wikipedia. So let's start. Today's book is Tommaso Campanella's City of the Sun, La Città del Sole. So who is this guy who wrote this book? Campanella is a genius. He's a child prodigy. He lived between 1568 and 1639. He even chose his own name when he was 14. He was Giovanni Domenico before, but he was like, no, I don't like this name. I like Thomas Aquinas, so my name's Tommaso now. That's how cool he is. This guy is a Dominican monk, a magician, an astrologer, a theologian. He's like everything. He allegedly wrote the best Italian poems of his time, yet most of them are lost. Also, he was a revolutionary. He tried to overthrow the Spanish rulers of his own town. This guy just can't stop. He goes in prison, goes out of prison, then gets death penalty for something he did, then acts like he has mental disorders, sets his own cell on fire, and then he gets rid of that death penalty, but he gets life sentence. Then goes on to write tons of books. This is also actually one of the books he wrote when he was in prison. And he writes the defense for Galileo even like he's in prison. Then Pope of the time, around 1624 or something, lets him out to protect him to eclipses with like magic. And he does some magic and it works, but some of his followers start uprising in his own hometown, and then he gets in trouble because of that. So he needs to run to France and runs to France and gets protection from the king, Louis XIII. And lives there like 5 years and dies. Also, he writes more books there, like writes a 3-volume book on metaphysics, meets Descartes and some other philosophers of the time, and passes away. So that's who Tommaso Campanella is in a few sentences. A goddamn revolutionary prodigy who protects popes with magic and writes utopian fiction from prison. And the book I'm going to talk about is, as I told you before, from his time in jail in 1602. And he was already in prison for 3 years. He writes this book. It's a book about a city-state on an island around India. It is written as a dialogue between a hospitalier knight, these Maltese knights, and a captain of a ship. And the captain tells the story of a city. He starts with architecture. He talks about in such detail how the city consists of 7 circles of walls, how there are many arches and architectural details that I can't actually understand. They come together and create this magnificent city. Also, how there's a temple inside and how this temple is constructed. How it has a dome on another dome, and there is a ceiling of light there, like a skylight on this dome. And the knight is amazed, is basically dumbfounded from this story of the city and just wants to hear more about it. So our captain goes on, tells how women and men are equal, how they educate children there. All of the city's walls are covered in knowledge of geography, mathematics, engineering, poetry, history, physics. Anything that can be known is written all around the walls of the city. And children walk around the city to learn all of it. With their teachers, they go around, see and read, and just like playing, they learn about the all human knowledge there is. And the city gets this information from their ambassadors all over the world. They send ships outside and get knowledge and get the knowledge back into the city and write that on their walls. And there's of course a specialized education too. The specialization of children's education happens based on their tendencies, skills. If a child is better at something, they go on to practice that, specialize on that topic. They also require children to do physical exercises and sports. It's a very interesting community where board games like chess are discouraged or even banned. They don't like their people stink still, I guess. To be fair, everybody does exercises there, like everybody is fit. That's how they like it. Their understanding of beauty is based on height and strength. This fitness part is something that they really care about, or at least Tommaso really cares about. it is mentioned several times in phrases like all of their women have beautiful skin because they are always exercising and stuff like that. But there also it's mentioned like there are like overweight people. I don't know. I don't know. Their work life is also interesting, as I mentioned before. The talents acquired based on personal tendencies and skills, and the jobs I believe are given by either the elders of the community or by the higher governors. People work around 4 hours a day, and rest is for thinking, philosophizing, and doing other activities. La Città del Sole, the city of the sun, is a republic, by the way. There are four big governors. They are kind of elected on the higher places, like on top of everyone. The most important one is like a philosopher, priest, king, president, and it's called metaphysics or metaphysician. Then he or she has three sub-governors, so-called princes, called power, wisdom, and love. Metaphysics or metaphysician is the person like this philosopher king is. They didn't expect him to know or her to know everything. Like they are shamed if they have been seen not knowing something that is kind of known, and that's the level of requirement for this person. And also there is like an age requirement. They don't let anyone below the age of 35 to do this job. Also they don't expect anyone below the age of 35 to know everything. The other three sub-governors have their own specialties. They are more knowledgeable on their own topics, but also they have general knowledge of the other topics too. Like, first one is power. It's about military and judiciary. It's all about the power distribution in society, basically. And the wisdom, it's about education, and maybe I don't recall it that part really clearly. It's about the education of the children, to science and knowledge stuff in the society. And love is, I think, the most important part and very interesting actually. Love is responsible for how men and women match and how the kids are growing. I think love is also in education. Maybe wisdom wasn't about education. I don't recall that part clearly. Now, let me get back to love. Love is very interesting. Uh, when I read this book, almost all of this imagined utopia was like a current Western European country: healthcare, good and free education, some kind of competent government, less ableism compared to other countries. There, there is democracy here. But this part, the power the prince called love here is, to put it mildly, a bit crazy. Let me reiterate it again. Love is responsible for matching men and women to populate. Like this person decides who will have sex with whom. Or at least they're responsible for the whole coordination of this situation. In this still, they don't like you have your sexual revolution or freedom. No, unless you're a woman that can't have a child for any reason, you're going to have sex with your designated partner with the required rituals. And the reason why is eugenics. This utopia runs on eugenics. They match like skinny people with overweight people. They match, let's say, men with higher libidos with some kind of, I think, calmer woman. I don't know. And probably vice versa. They try to create this average society. It's basically creating a utopia with selective breeding. It's like, I don't know, Nazis or something. And let me dive down for the reason behind this. Our boy, Tommaso Campanella, thinks that private property is where societies get corrupted. When people have things, they tend to become selfish. He explicitly says if people are rich, they try to be more rich with some disgusting means, and when they are poor, they become cunning, deceitful, according to him. So his solution to this problem is getting rid of all property. But if you still have something in, like, quotation marks. If you have a spouse that no one can have, or if you have a child or children that is or that are only yours or shared with your spouse, I think, then you still have, in quotation marks again, property, or at least have something. Then what do you do? This would also create selfishness, so you get rid of this too. No one has a spouse, no one has children, everybody has their designated partners for their designated sex nights, and all the children are communal children that society should look after for. That's how they do it and how they keep their society, again in quotation marks, perfect. And that's the 17th century way to do it, baby. As I said, the only property they have is communal. No one owns anything in the society. Every need is provided by the governors of the society. Everyone wears the same clothing. Men and women wear toga-like clothes. So the only difference is the length of the clothing over their kneecaps. Men have them over their knees, and women have them below their knees. And even how they wash their clothes is explained. It has a certain frequency. I think it was a week. Every week their clothes are washed, or every month with soap or water with ash. They also frequently wash themselves, and it's not like frequently. I think it was also designated too, but I'm not so sure about it. Actually, this could be like a revolutionary idea for the European culture at the time, because after the plague, if I know correctly, people stopped using the communal baths, and the shower or bathing culture in Europe was fading away. Of course, it's just from my memory, so I'm not so sure. So it's kind of a revolutionary hygienic idea for the time, I guess. Also, there are some parts of this society is kind of better than what we have today. The society is basically classless. Every occupation has equal value in the eyes of the people of the city, because every job is necessary and needs to be done. No one looks down to any other person. And unless someone is completely incapable of working due to some kind of disability or age, they work. There isn't any ableism or some kind of discrimination against any kind of people. If there is a way that you can contribute to society, you do it. Gender discrimination in workspace is also like what I would imagine a Scandinavian country is like. There is mostly no discrimination, but if some work requires more like muscle power, men tend to do it, and for some reason, musicians are only women and children. Men can't do music because I believe our boy Tommaso thinks men basically suck at it. Also, there are some jobs for some reason women don't do in the city, but it is not explained. For example, they don't become, I think, wood carvers for some reason. I don't know, and they can't make weapons if I remember correctly. Also, the understanding of crime is a bit different in the city. There isn't really any conventional crimes we know of, like thievery, murder, sexual assault, or stuff like that. It's not that these people are perfect, they are not. But it is explained in several different places in the book. The society is close to perfect, at least for Tommaso Campanella. It is not because the people are imperfect, but these imperfect people have a system that makes them behave in a way that makes this utopia work. The captain in the book says that their biggest crime is lying, but also there are crimes with death penalty that are explained in the later parts of the book. Also, the death penalty part is very interesting because if you can convince people that you are wrongly accused and you don't deserve the punishment, you can get away with an exile, and they send you like their nice, send you away from the city with their prayers and nice wishes for you. That's very interesting. Also, the death penalty is executed communally too, so if someone's going to be killed, people kill them, which is interesting. So you have the responsibility to kill the person. I think if you are the accuser, you need to start first. So it's interesting. Also, they're judges of the trials of these crimes are the masters of the occupations, like guild masters. And if the trial can't end in one day, the trial's seen by Power Prince, the Prince of Power. And if it doesn't work, it goes to metaphysician. So there's some kind of an appeal system. Also, some crimes are not appealable for some reason. If they are like so heinous, I think. So if you like, if it's like treason, for example, probably. And one interesting thing is they don't have jails. There is a system of rehabilitative correction where they take people out of society and wait them to sort themselves out. But also, like, beating is an option. So you may be banned from communal eating place for a while, or you may be banned from sexual reproduction rituals for a while, or you may get beaten to death, I guess. No, I don't know. But you can get beaten. And it's the 17th century, and at least there isn't any torture. They just kill you or beat. I mean, torture isn't like specific ways to torture people. Like Tommaso Campanella himself had gotten tortured. And there aren't any torture in that way. It's kind of a modern way of, I don't know, beating is torture, but that's how I did it. In the 17th century, it was much worse, and I think this system is much better than the system they had in those days. And yeah. By the way, let's talk about this communal work and ownership stuff. It's basically the backbone of this society. These people live in government housings in a communal fashion and eat their meals together every day in a communal place where women of the city prepare the meals and the people under the age of 40 serve the people over the age of 40. And also people under the age of 40, they serve each other. It's not perfect, actually. I mean, why is there an age difference? Why is 40? I don't know. But it's pretty egalitarian for the time, I guess. The only difference between the members of society is sometimes when they do something remarkable in a war, for example, they are given little crowns, like little trophies, that's all. Everyone is equal, every work is equal. I don't know, I like it. Yeah, I don't know. It scratches some itch in me. And some other topic this book goes into is war, which is, I mean, this society is like, it's even mentioned in the book, is they're like Spartans. They're a bit isolationist on this issue. They're still a bit isolationist, but also it's a bit like Switzerland. They don't go into wars, but if you like touch them or their allies or somehow do wrong to their government or I don't know insult their religion, they harm you. If you go to a war with them, they obliterate you without mercy. They keep this hardcore military where women and men both in. They're not equal, but they're maybe kind of equal for the time, at least. And they're always ready to go to war, and they always win, always. And if they conquer you, they appoint you governor and integrate you to the city of the sun. Essentially, they bring democracy and freedom to their enemies. They're a bit like United States, a bit. And the book ends with the captain leaving the Hospitalier Knight. Before captain leaves the Hospitalier Knight, he tells him some super astrological, I put my quartz crystals under moonlight to charge them level magical stuff about how the world is changing. Like there is very detailed astrological explanations which I don't really care about. And then tells us how the printing press, gunpowder, and the usage of compass is the pushing force behind this change, behind this changing world. He tells that how more books were printed in the last 50 years than in the last millennia, how we live in a whole new era and in a whole new world. Campanella realizes the importance of these things while living through the change itself, basically. Maybe it was obvious to people then, but looking back, I feel like this guy was a visionary genius who had seen what's coming. And in the last part of their dialogue, Captain tells the knight that they have found a way to fly. They basically invented flying. And they have ships that go without any wind. Also, by the way, they have tractors, I think, like agricultural machines. So in the end, Tommaso knew what is to come, what needs to happen, and he wrote a book to show us what can be done. A free-loving, property-free, democracy-bringing communist utopia. Thank you for watching. Cheers.